taking it all the way to the final map in the best of 5. So this is a player who just has tremendous amounts of endurance and discipline, and he is clashing with Bukster's rather unorthodox and unpredictable style.
And if that's a style that CNZ is going to be able to get a little bit of a download on potentially, then this could be. Some people predict a 3-0, and I would be inclined to agree. But as we now begin, we have to talk about the fact that, look, this is light versus heavy. So this is already going to be a bit scary for CNZ if he doesn't play his cards right. You're going up against this champion that has all that stack, all that damage. And we're on Exile, we're on a map that can really force those close-range exchanges. And I love the positioning from CNZ already, making sure he's got kind of an immediate escape plan. You don't want to get caught against the wall against this kind of champion right here.
Absolutely not. And with that aggressive push, Bukster now in full control of most of the map. He's gonna land a rail too. CNZ running for his life, but Bukster will not allow him to do so. He's even going to stick around center map to try and force a frag of the respawn. Look at how long he's delaying heavy. All he wants is damage, knowing that he has a major item behind him at his convenience.
It's a good plan, because now look at the difference between the two. CNZ, last lifeline at this stage. There's a few lights here and there, but there's no armor. And as Anarchy, even with this injection, if there's no armor and Bukster finds you, I mean, look at the stack. Oof! That rail doesn't quite hit its mark. Would have been pivotal if he could. CNZ's going to have to use this high ground quite wisely here. Get a bit of that free damage as the heavy is about to spawn, but there's a delay between the two of them. Bukster's definitely going to be able to put himself towards Mega to kind of make this next play. But CNZ, he's having to play this patiently.
Good positioning, a little bit of damage with LG coming out of the teleporter. CNZ is just prodding for that opportunity, that one situation in which he can do a nice bit of combo damage, maybe a rocket into a rail, so he can be the first to position himself on an item and take a fight. Now all he can do instead is rain down the rockets from above. The damage is solid, but not enough for him to drop in. And Bukster still gets out with the major item, takes a fair bit of damage in return. CNZ has an opportunity. Is he going to press his luck? Surely he should be able to secure the Mega. And just like that, catch-up control has flipped.
It was a well-played sequence. Being able to get the damage that you needed as well, having the peace of mind to know, look, this matchup, I'm against Keel. I cannot chase down this hallway because those grenades, when I've got no armor, are going to absolutely annihilate at this point. And this is the goal. CNZ has established full control. He's got both of the items. That gap between Mega and Heavy still exists. But now he can afford to chase. He can take some of this damage. And Bukster very much on the back foot, just like that. And now the speed might start to apply. CNZ is going to be nice and aggressive. He has the damage, he has the weapons, and he also has the injection. So he was able to lick his wounds just a little bit. Not only running the cycle of the main items, but the smalls as well. The light armors are also belonging to CNZ. And Bukster doesn't have a lot to work with.
Bukster is really struggling to make good use out of his railgun. Finally, he lands another shot, make it 2, but before that moment, he was at 18% railgun accuracy catch-up, and that has cost him a lot, because he will take these fights expecting a rail to land, and then just takes a lot of damage. And that was quite unexpected. CNZ tossing himself off the map.
You know what's really sad is that I swapped off from CNZ's point of view right as that happened, so I can't even tell you how it happened. I just changed over to Bukster, and then we all just see a -1. Yeah. I guess that's that, but what does that mean? CNZ having to use that injection again to put himself up nice and healthy, put himself towards Mega, but it's taking a long time for a lot of these fights to play out, and already having that divide as the two, that's a bit of a heartbreaker.
But we know that CNZ remains extremely focused. Bukster, I'm just not feeling the weapon choices catch up. This is the second time where he takes a rocket fight at that kind of a distance, and he just doesn't do the damage, whereas CNZ is able to consistently hit him with the LG and then secure the frag. So Bukster kind of fumbling some of the weapon choices, I feel like, and giving CNZ so much to work with.
Taking a whole amount of damage to CNZ, but the main goal of the item was there. Unfortunately, Bukster completely just double backing. I wonder if CNZ was not expecting him to simply turn around and go, wait, no, I'm going to take this fight. Forget I'm Keel.
That starting stack really does make a difference, especially when it's light versus heavy.
Oh man, yeah, it does. You can say that again. having to do all that work on, especially these like slightly smaller maps where the fights are likely. Fresh off the spawn, you've got all that, something that a light champion has to work tooth and nail for. Put themselves in that situation. Bukster trying to get both. Oh, the big rocket fight comes through, but obviously it will be Bukster coming out on top. CNZ rushing it from the spawn. Teleporter is good to keep him alive, at least for a little bit, but what can he do next? Bukster has to be very careful here. Catches CNZ with some damage, but there's no rail on his side, so he has to be super careful.
TNZ doesn't have a railgun either. Still lacking rockets, will finally pick them up, but he had been playing with nothing but LG and machine gun for quite some time there. Now both players arming themselves. CNZ looks like he will be making a drop down for a railgun soon, so he too will have the unholy trinity at his disposal. It is Bukster, gets away with the heavy, and lands a nice shot to boot as well. Mega's about to spawn.
Lovely read right there. No one's gonna come around as that Mega spawns. Just this combination of the grenade. I kind of like that grenade, using the grenade boost just to make sure he gets there in time, and that rail is going to create a difficult situation. Now for CNZ! Pineapple! We take those. And now CNZ spawning with no armor. He's got to be really careful on the escape here. And unfortunately, having to trade off a light armor for a heavy. I mean, the scraps that are left, really. And this is absolutely a matchup that is favoring Bukster so far. Just keeping his stack heavy. CNZ hasn't been able to get the damage or at least stick to it long enough. And this is a little bit of what I think, I mean, a lot of us were likely worried about this. Looking at this champion pick on this map, you see Keel versus Anarchy. Like, oh, not again! Oh my god, CNZ, what is it about these relegation matches and falling off the map?
Don't remind me. Getting flashbacks from that one fateful Molten Falls game. CNZ once again just dropping straight off the map, giving his opponent so much leeway, so much freedom to secure these items and assert dominance of the map. Now Mega...
Surely, Flea, this has got to be a sign of nerve. Like, this does not happen. This doesn't happen to this caliber of player at this quantity. Yeah, you'll fall off the map every now and then, but not twice in the same map. In this condition, he's got to be nervous. But now, it's one frag. Problem is, Flea, you could get 5 frags just to equalize, and Bukster spawns with that much stack? I don't know.
3 minutes left on the clock. CNZ, indeed, has got to make a miracle happen. The advantage he has right now is that Bukster doesn't have a railgun. He's pushing aggressively, and once more, Bukster. Yeah, we'll talk about it more after the game, but it's still very real, Ketchup. He does have an opportunity. LG's coming out, but he has to get through that massive spawn stack that Skeel gets to work with. Will at least secure the heavy, and he's got a good rotation to work with. This is the moment.
He catches Bukster as he's retreating. Bukster doesn't have a lot of weapons himself. Pretty much just an LG, and he's run out of ammo! CNZ will push forward. And if I do say so myself, with being able to get that armor and the injection on deck, this comeback is becoming very real. I think frustrating, though, for CNZ fans, because those two just accidental ring outs, it has to be.
Yeah.
There should not be this much work to do. He should be narrowly behind at this point.
Showing up a little late for heavy as well. Bukster secures it, has overstack for both health and armor, and CNZ scrounging the map for resources. Very little to work with. The aim needs to be absolutely phenomenal if he wants to string together 3 frags in the time that he has left. That's a good rocket to open it up with, but he can't push in, and Bukster secures the Mega. Is this still possible, Ketchup?
Very hard to answer. Maybe I'll tell you over the course of this next fight, which doesn't favor CNZ, and this is that hard choice to make. I need to push forward, I need to get damage, but at the same time, I have nothing. I'm gonna die now. We have 1 minute left. This has got to be a GG for Bukster, and I think a frustrating loss for CNZ. I'd say hopefully he can keep his head in the game, but I've never known CNZ mid-match to kind of tilt or get frustrated. I always use that word discipline to describe him, but if there's any map that you have to recover from and forget about it, this has got to be the one, because it was a disastrous way to start things off.
I completely agree with you there. Disciplined is the perfect way of describing CNZ. Tox is pretty much the only player who comes to mind with the same kind of resilience and mental endurance no matter what happens. So he is not going to allow this to tilt him. He's going to take it one map of a time, reset, moving into the second game of this series shortly. But indeed, it is a tough pill to swallow. Those two ring outs, if they hadn't happened, Ketchup, it would have been a one frag game at one point.
And with the one frag game, it can totally change your decision making. You have less work to do. You can be a little bit more slow with those decisions. You can be more methodical with each play. And unfortunately, with those frags that CNZ was self-conceding, you find yourself in a situation where it's like, okay, well, now what do I do? Now, just looking at the items, even on their own, Bukster, on top of having more armor in general, having 13 heavies versus CNZ's 6, there were a lot of instances where CNZ just was not able to make his presence known on some of these items, and then you just have all this work to do. An uphill struggle to begin with, and then the elephant in the room. These instances falling off the map, and that just resets everything badly in the opponent's favor.
I do think that there's definitely opportunity for CNZ still. Bukster, his game was far from flawless. I wanted to point it out, but I left it until afterwards. But his weapon choices were lacking, let's put it that way, in several of these engagements. Time and time again, CNZ goes for the LG, takes the fight at medium range, and you can just see Bukster firing back with rockets and grenades, hoping to land damage, but he never does. And then by the time that he actually lands or gets a good shot in, CNZ just melts his stack. So I think that Bukster's weapon choice has not been as good as it should be, and that might give CNZ an angle in the next map.
This is the kind of map you just need to forget about. And I'm sure he will. Like I said, we haven't, especially in Pro League, we just haven't seen any of that kind of negative emotion come out from CNZ before. And I think that even mild frustration it looked like on his player cam, where look, accidents happen, sometimes that's the way it is. A map can be a bit disastrous, and you look at the fact that we already went into that looking at Keel versus Anarchy a little bit like, oh, well, if Bukster's able to at least keep some of that stack high and hit some of the damage, he was able to do what needed to be done to get that first map. But as you said, we go into more of an even playing field on this next map. I believe 2 medium champs, and CNZ an opportunity to refresh and, to be honest, just pretend that first map never happened.
It is Awoken. Far less opportunity for these unforced ring outs for CNZ as well, so maybe that'll put his mind at ease somewhat, but indeed far more balanced. We've got Bukster playing Doomslayer, so he's got that vertical mobility in terms of the double jump, and CNZ will be running the Strog and Peeker, meaning that he's got the crouch slide, a ton of acceleration and horizontal mobility. So it's speed versus verticality as we're about to jump into Awoken, which is map 2 of this series.
I think you always have to watch out for a player like Bukster as well, don't you? Where you tend to just be in the regular matchmaking. You'll be in team deathmatch queues or free for all queues or whatever it is, and you'll always kind of see Bukster kicking around in those. And if you see someone, it's similar to like a Tox, where if you see someone in those kind of like public modes all the time, where they're just getting frags left, right, and center, if they bring forward a more unorthodox style, at the very least, when it's time to throw down and we fight, that's just muscle memory taking over, So on a map like Awoken, as close range as it can be in a champion like Doomslayer, who can really get in and out of all these different fights, it's mobility in different ways, isn't it? You've got the speed of the Strog, you've got the sheer, cutting the corners of Doomslayer. So that element of execution is just removed from your brain. You haven't got to think about it. And as we now go into this next map, we'll see. It looks like the warm-up's going to be coming to an end. We're loading into Awoken after a unfortunate map 1 for CNZ, I think, is a generous way of putting it. An opportunity to refresh and get 1 map each on the board, or for Bukster to take that 2-0. And let's not forget, we have Veil with the Death Knight, which we're all kind of keeping a keen eye on. If he can get 2-0 here, he could set up for pretty good things up the next map.
Indeed, we talk about CNZ's endurance, but being 2 maps down would be an unfavorable position even for the best of players. Now we're starting it off from Bukster's point of view, just setting out to control that center area of the map where Doom works so well, because it is incredibly easy to jump in and out of cover from the rockets as well as from the mega health when you've got the double jump to work with. So it's a powerful center area to dominate, and Bukster uses it to get off to a really strong start. He should be able to secure mega as well. CNZ can't get the exit damage, so now Bukster has a tremendous stack to work with, and CNZ is on the back foot right off the bat.
CNZ was trying to play that carefully. He goes around the corner knowing that Bukster's likely to be holding that angle. He barely peeks it to bait the rail out, but when the rail misses, gives himself a peeker, and it's like, right, I can get a rail out again, but what do I do? You can still just push forward and take it, and even if I rail you, who cares? So now, understanding that as we start this map, 1 minute in already, and CNZ down on positioning at the very least, as Bukster is kind of just running a circuit around the entire map, picking up what he wants, when he wants, and Mega comes up next, noticing there's a big delay between the two of them, and this is a chance for Bukster to push forward. Control's one thing, and I'd say damage is another, but damage is something that he's happy to hit. CNZ's been forced onto the banana side. LG this entire time, and can't even exchange the damage. Bukster is keeping him on the end of a string, and again, just these unfavorable parts of the map with CNZ. He's like, hello, I'd like to get out of here, please.
I mean, just look at the disparity. Bukster has done 500 points of damage, CNZ 66.
Ugh.
We're 2 minutes into this map and CNZ has done double-digit points of damage. That just shows how much easier it is for Bukster to maneuver around the map and keep hitting his opponents from these favorable positions for him that make it more difficult for CNZ to slap back.
However, the longer it takes to get this first frag, Bukster does drop down. The Berserk used, but no, getting stuck. A little bit of a shaking that one off, I think. Bukster popping the Berserk, trying to get that instant fixed set speed, trying to escape and getting stuck on the jump pad, it looks like.
Definitely a bit of a misplay. And just like that, it changes. Bukster extremely dominant opening for the first 2 minutes, but just like that, CNZ turns it all around. He is hurting though. Decent amount of damage dealt with Peeker. Does he want to commit? I don't think so. He races out of the room, sacrifices heavy, but stays alive.
No armor to his name though. Only 100 hit points, and if Bukster, he lands even one. Be careful though, because without that rail, Bukster's not going to have those kind of immediate opportunities. Trying to go for a more unpredictable part of the map though. Getting through the bottom section of Teleporter. That's some really nice tri-bolt to start things off, but as long as he doesn't have a rail, this is going to be a pretty scary fight to take. Understanding that we might have to take some free damage here, that's going to be hard to return. CNZ once more looking to put himself in position. Makes the perfect call out that he's going to try and finally get a rail, and he will be on the money. Bukster. All he has is a rocket, but that's enough to at least take this Mega for sure.
Kind of seeing a cycle emerge. CNZ gets a hard-fought frag, and then Bukster resumes control, and then CNZ just spends a little while running away, getting his resources back, but not this time. Bukster catches sight of him, finishes it off with the LG. Now has both the Mega and the Heavy to his name, whereas CNZ doesn't have rockets, doesn't have LG, but will find both of those conveniently placed on the location of his death, and that might help him out a lot.
Oh, the mid-air on the Pika though. I was going to say too, nice little bit of Doomslayer optimization on that Heavy, being able to use that instant double jump to shut down the kind of little rail hole that people like to take for free. Little elements that make the champion stand out, but it will be fantastic LG from CNZ. Not only scoring a frag, but the Heavy at the same time, and now stands in prime position to fight and in position for Mega. This is a great opportunity to turn things around and take full control over the entire map. Bukster trying to force his way through, does at the very least manage to take the Mega, and that does mean that CNZ's not going to be as healthy as he otherwise would want to be. Plenty of opportunities now on the map to soak up. And now we somewhat stabilize, I think, Fleet. A rail on the side of Bukster is his only weapon, though, and missing that shot, that's a bit of a bummer. He has to give up the Heavy now.
Before pre-firing that LG just a moment ago, CNZ had 55% lightning gun accuracy, which is obscene.
Woo!
And that is the risk of running Doomslayer against someone with such good LG tracking skills. The double jump puts you high above in the skies, but it makes you a very easy target to get knocked back, as we just saw by that lightning gun. And CNZ is using the weapon appropriately. 100 damage with the rockets, 200 with rail, but nearly 1,300 with the LG. He's all in on the shaft, and it's paying him off nicely.
Yeah, I was looking at the stats right as you pointed it out, and it's like, damn, he really do be doing most of his damage with that LG, but it's just playing the matchup perfectly.
Yeah.
Doomslayer is so good at avoiding rockets in a rocket duel, but the LG Just an element of great against one weapon, not so hot against another. A perfect understanding here from TNZ. Once more dropping down. It does force Bukster into a scary position because he can't double jump anymore. He completely can't. And I almost wonder later on in the map, is there even going to come a point where CNZ starts swapping to the rocket because you've almost just conditioned Bukster to stop jumping, and now you get almost complete free splash for high damage count. Bukster tries to push forwards on the Mega, and really nothing he's able to do on these items, Flea. He's trying to, at the very least, take them away, and he can't even do that right now. It's not going so hot for him. The last minute double jump to save his skin, but Bukster still so weak. And I mean, a bonus rail towards heavy, maybe? That's probably as good as this encounter's gonna get. There's one. Looks for a second.
I'm starting to sense some desperation in some of these Bukster plays. Like that push over at Mega, just blindly trying to force himself onto the item, even though CNZ could just push him back with the LG. Bukster, he knows that time is running out. 6 frags of a deficit, that's a lot of kills to make up in just 3 minutes to work with. So he has to apply force, but in doing so, he only makes it all the more likely that CNZ just sends him spiraling back.
3 minutes on the clock, and this is one of those smaller maps, but even against the likes of CNG with that mobility, it comes a point where he starts to shift gears if he wants to. Bukster has this giant stack, sure, but if CNZ just wants to stay slippery, hard to spot, hit those ranged rail angles, that just makes it so much more frustrating to move in. He has complete and utter advantage. Ooh, that's unfortunate for Bukster. Misses a couple of those rails too. This really is that critical moment for you where every shot has to count. There's no alternative.
Absolutely. It's all gonna come down to this. Nice little play from CNZ. Unable to secure the frag, but he did a fair bit of damage. If he can get away with Mega, and indeed he does, he should at least have something to work with. And Bukster, look at the stack difference. Bukster secured the frag, but he is hurting badly. Almost knocks him off the map. CNZ clinging to the ledge, stays in, and all he has to do now is run down 2 more minutes of game time.
But it goes to show how the game has been played. CNZ, way less major items compared to Bukster. Bukster's had 11 heavies and only 4 for CNZ. This has not been his objective. Full control hasn't been the play. And now he's able to just entirely play on position, being sneaky. Now, a Pika. Oh, that Pika. Missing the rail, that's just bonus damage that Bukster really doesn't want to give up. And that rail's going to make things difficult too, as a minute and a half, plenty of frags left to go in CNZ, who maintains his position as far away from Bukster as possible, really. And every time Bukster, I'm checking things out from his point of view, I guess we all are too. Every time there is a slight rail angle, CNZ's already gone. He's out of there. Oh, but gets a good call out on a read right there. Comeback becomes likely if he can find these frags in quick succession. Flea, he might be in business.
I also love just how paranoid CNZ has gotten Bukster. Unless he knows exactly where his opponent is, he keeps checking every single corner to make sure CNZ isn't just lying in wait right there. But now it all comes down to the speed. And Bukster, he can jump, he can't sprint, and CNZ obviously has got a lot of mobility, a lot of acceleration with that crouch slide, and I think that with 30 seconds left, half a minute to go, Bukster even completely losing track of his opponent.
Yeah, he has no idea.
Yeah.
And this will be a win for CNZ, absolutely. A great chance to stabilize, all things considered. Now, I don't want to get hung up on that first map too much, because the reality is accidents happen, that's just the way it goes. But I think it's good that in this position, he has at the very least been able to stabilize here and play just a solid game. A game of having to, even in the very first 2 minutes, where, as you'd pointed out, he hadn't even done over 100 points of damage at the time. But the important thing was, no frags had been conceded. So in that position, where you know, right, I've hit like no damage, but I haven't given up anything. He was able to play the long game, play for that one moment. Okay, now it's 1 up, and I can start to, piece by piece, kind of trickle those frags down. And I just really liked how he played the game of Strogg there. The closing moments of that map, it was, I can use my speed against you. And we see that so often where it's not easy to do that. You know, it can be quite scary playing that kind of a hit and run game that late on when a Doomslayer can be anywhere. But that big divide that was created, Flea, just perfect usage of the lightning gun. I really enjoyed that. A lot of these highlight reel moments will be that LG fight that he just shredded.
Yep, indeed, and that just comes to show CNZ's famous mental resilience. I think that first map, something like that happening to you at such a crucial moment, the stage finals, a relegation game at that, that's enough to crush lesser players. But CNZ keeps his focus, remains disciplined, and immediately just claps back in map 2, showing that he has got what it takes to remain in the Pro League. Bukster, of course, wants to prove his own worth all that much more. So we are loading up for map 3, which is Veil of Nath. Bukster, Ketchup, you're going to be happy to see this, playing Death Knight, one of your favorites, whereas CNZ is running the Ranger.
I'm curious over how these encounters will play out, Flea. Death Knight, a champion that has, for lack of a better term, just got better. Being able to knock you up, being able to get more damage, more everything, basically. And it takes what he was already able to do and just turns it up to 11. And on a map like Veil of Nath, where we now have these close range encounters and the fights are going to be constant, the utility alone of that just burst. You're within my kind of flame strike cone, and I've got a rocket launcher. We throw down. And on the flip side of that, at the very least, he's going up against a Ranger, and Ranger knows a thing or two about burst of his own. So these point-blank fights, I'm just kind of curious for the insanity that follows. Not that CNZ plays heavily around that, but there's going to come a point, surely, where Bukster lands that one trap, that one opportunity. And Veil can be such a tricky map for all of that. But an opportunity to now take the lead. I think CNZ just able to play that smart game on the previous map. Great stuff for him. But now a map that becomes a bit more combat oriented, especially with the champion picks.
An important difference between the abilities, though, is that even though they have the burst damage on either side, Ranger has that mobility, right? And on a vertical map like Veil, that can help so much. Instead of having to go through the dangerous teleporter where your opponent might be waiting and hiding at the top, you can just circumvent that entirely, orb straight onto Mega, get the heavy easily. It gives you so much mobility. So you're right, we're going to see these hyper-offensive close engagements where they're both popping their ability, but I'm curious to see what CNZ can make happen with that extra mobility that he has.
I'm interested to see what layer we're at going into this map, because you know you're going up against a Ranger. You know that he has the opportunity to use the orb to bypass those kind of death passages. But at the same time, if you make a good read on the usage of the orb for mobility, he now has nothing to kind of fight toe to toe when we're at point blank, and flame strike becomes an option. So I'm really curious over who's going to have that first upper hand. You know, how's this matchup going to unfold as now we begin Veil of Nath, the new and improved Death Knight coming out versus the old faithful Ranger. Checking things out from Bukster's point of view first. Oh, already.
Yep. Oh, flame, rocket, both connecting. CNZ is hurting, he's low. And Bukster knows exactly where he is. Yeah, I like the orb, but it was a bit too soon, yet hang on. Rocket damage.
Couldn't land the final shots though.
Yeah.
CNZ kept himself alive, and now he's got the temporary 1-up. The light armors have been taken, heavy's next. CNZ, he's in a better position for the better item. Already winning the smarter game here, I think. Ooh, see ya later, Bukster. And now CNZ gets both items. This is one hell of a start, Flea.
Yes, indeed, but he lost a lot of that armor he had gained from the heavy. And Bukster actually has a slight stack advantage for the time being. Weapons, though, that is what he's lacking. Bukster doesn't have a rocket, doesn't have the LG yet, so he can't really do much up close. Still setting up to try and ram the rail. Well, looks like he will break away. I like that. I like not sticking around, because he knows that even if he lands the shot, if his opponent warps at him. Trident, that's some metal you don't see every day. Good amount of damage with CNZ, gets to a bubble on time.
I liked that play purely because Bukster made the perfect call out on the orb being used, but CNZ likely knew that Bukster was waiting for the orb to be used. But CNZ knows, hey, there's health up here, so if I can just get enough damage, I can frag you, take the Mega, and then go and heal up and stop the damage over time from the flames anyway. So I wondered what layer would be out on this map. We are many, many layers in already, and not even 2 minutes done. This has been an interesting exchange already. The amount of respect and decision-making you now have to give to the Flame Strike that you didn't have to give as much attention to before. I really like it.
Good rockets. CNZ pushing on through. He's gonna burn to death. Bukster. That was a battle of abilities. Both just going for the burst damage. Bukster kept his distance far enough to just bait his opponent into landing straight into the flames. This might be the start of a comeback. He's got the high ground. He's got the better stack and weapons to work with. Will he tie it up here? CNZ actually manages to escape, but in doing so, Bukster does secure the Mega, and he's got a nice rotation with Heavy spawning in a few seconds, and he should be able to be the first one on top of it as well.
Bukster's going to be happy to take that trade. CNZ can back up near rail and take whatever scraps exist, and I can get one of those major items in this position. Put himself in position to get a second one. Unfortunately, CNZ not able to hit the rails that would have absolutely kind of stunted that growth of the stack that Bukster has to work with. Both players have an ability ready to rock. In this position. Ooh, and some nice spam around that corner from Bukster. Perfect catch. CNZ back to a just shy of a normal stack, and now he's 100-100.
You can clearly tell that this is much more of a brawl by just looking at the railgun use. Bukster has fired one shot, CNZ has landed two. A very little railgun use this series, or rather this map, and that is because they're always so close to each other, punching with rockets, abilities, and then of course the lightning gun as well. After that engagement, it looks like CNZ once again securing control of the map, and Bukster relegating himself kind of to the lower areas, trying to set up a bit of a trap on Heavy. Nice read, I like that. Nice little rail as well. Preemptive phase strike coming through. Yeah, that's a lot. Now he has to get out. CNZ doesn't want to let him. Oh! Through the closing doors and actually off the spawn as well. CNZ, two beautiful shots to even further his lead.
This is, as you said, although this is a brawl, this is also a position where one misuse of this ability from Bukster, and CNZ no longer has anything to fear, apart from, I mean, like what, the Flaming Gauntlet maybe, but who cares about that in this situation? It's, you've got nothing, I go in, and I probably win the fight. Now 5-1, CNZ looking real good on Bukster so far. Ooh, nice little rail though from Bukster. Not going to fully deter CNZ, because he's still kind of healthy, all things considered. And in position for Mega. Take the rail just to make sure. Oh, but there's no health. Finally picks up a small health bubble, but the damage over time, it just gives Bukster information. It's so similar to Sorlag's Spit, where it's, I know where you are on the map, I just look at the numbers, baby.
CNZ gets away with this one. Oh, thank God for the rocket to the face. Bukster would have been beating himself up over dropping down and just getting juked by the orb, giving up Heavy as he's doing it. Now he will have positioning on the Mega. Is this the start of a comeback catch-up? It sure seems like it.
There's all the tools in place too. Bukster has the Unholy Trinity. Granted, could use a little bit more LG ammo. Oh, the rail from CNZ immediately puts Bukster into a tricky position. He is able to get in and out on the Heavy and manages to make sure that rail does not connect. As we now move on towards Mega, a pretty pivotal item spawn, I think, at this point. And Bukster not in the position where he's able to go and steal it, I don't think. He uses the teleporter, but now, where's CNZ gone? He's just conceded it outright. And he's keeping the lead. He's protecting the lead. I like that.
CNZ is one of those players who can absolutely slow the game down to a snail pace. One of the most defensively gifted players in the entire league. So Bukster, even with all the weapons, even with both of the major items, he is struggling to catch even a glimpse of CNZ and find any opportunities to deal damage.
The reality is, the longer CNZ can drag this out, the more work Bukster has to do in a short space of time. It kind of starts maybe just having to push forward too hard, being too aggressive. You haven't got time to do it anymore. You cause you to miss that flame strike or miss that rail, and that's going to be CNZ's opportunity to smell blood in the water and just go in. Oh, and he repositions already. A big trade there for CNZ, because he's going to be happy to take a fight without flame strike, and now it's gone. He hasn't got to worry about it.
And that is, of course, the downside of playing Death Knight on a map like this. Your passive ability is essentially worthless after you use your active, rather. So CNZ knows this, and he knows that there's an opportunity for him to push in.
I at a time.
Still.
Bukster, I'd say he has full control over this map, but I think it's because CNZ is simply allowing it to be so. And look at that.
Oh, he's gonna hear, yeah. We've hear the hourglass.
We've been talking about time being wasted. This whole sequence, Flea's taken so long that now we have less than 3 minutes on the clock. And the difference of frags is the same. The preemptive flame strike forcing CNZ into a tricky position. And hang on a minute, he's taken a bunch of damage and he gets forced down the teleport to take the health bubble. Forced into a do or die position where I think both options would die, to be honest. 2 frags to go to even things up, and Bukster, I liked that use. Just create a rock in a hard place situation.
Yeah. I also love the patience there. Doesn't push through the portal because he knows that there's no health up there, and he's well aware that CNZ will have to come to him to secure a health bubble, so he just patiently waits and finishes off the flag. Now Mega will be the next major item to spawn. Damage being exchanged. Bukster, he needs to start landing those rails. He can't be missing at such a crucial time, and CNZ punishing with the LG. Even bullies his way, straight up bullies his way onto the Mega.
That is going to be a frustrating frag to concede, where you had so many opportunities for damage that just weren't seized, and then CNZ pushes it forward. Another flame strike that doesn't work out, but now more damage over time. Stops the bleeding with a light health bubble though, but he pushes forward. Relentless is CNZ, and he scores himself another frag at a pretty bad time for Bukster. He has a lot of work now. Yes, this is a small map, but CNZ's just been playing this so well in general. It's hard to see it.
Bukster aim just feels like it's failing him at the worst possible time. That fight over at Mega, and then the push towards Heavy, the LG, I think that was like 5% LG that he might have gotten in that engagement. Not nearly enough to get a frag, and then he misses the rail on his opponent going out a bounce pad. He needs a frag now. Can he get it? CNZ down below. He doesn't have the time to waste picking up major items. He has to get kills. This should be the first.
3 in a minute.
Is up. He's got to go so fast, Ketchup.
He's probably only going to have enough time for maybe 1 more flame strike, and that's it too. So he's going to have to kind of ignore that in the strategy, at least for the time being. And CNZ will be playing this retreating game. He has an orb too, and that orb, this late in the map, unlikely to be used for combat. He's going to use it to escape and waste time. Bukster's going to have to just relentlessly chase it, and there it is. He waits for the opportunity, and this will waste a good 10 seconds at least. And with this much work to go, this has to be GG's. CNZ playing it perfectly on the defense again for another time. The second we can lock in that gear shift and we can now play that defensive style, CNZ has that sixth sense for when to do it. Who cares about damage now? And another win here for CNZ, 2-1 as we go into our next map. But I think CNZ feeling pretty good about that one.
That's the mobility I was talking about before we even jumped into this map, right? CNZ, he gets the lead, slow plays it, and he knows so well. If you want to get up there, the only thing you can do is go to the teleporter and then go up the bounce pad. All it takes me is a quick orb and I'm completely out of the room. There's nothing you can do. And Bukster just wasn't able to keep up with that speed. If you look at the damage dealt this game, it's pretty much tied. Item control slightly favoring Bukster, but CNG, he just did more damage when it mattered the most, and it feels like Bukster, when it was crucial to land those shots, he would whiff 1, 2, 3 rails in a row, and that allowed CNZ to just really close up the game.
It's one of those rare cases, I think, where you look at the endgame stats and you see that Bukster had more items, or more of the important items, but it kind of more spells just how in control of the situation CNZ was, because so many of those items, especially in that kind of late halfway point, those items were being taken because CNZ didn't want them. He was confident he could win without them. It was the game of positioning that was able to be won so convincingly. And the combination of CNZ playing that defensive, frustrating game, that, I mean, it's got to be frustrating to deal with, because you can never, you can't pin this guy down. And now he's not even taking these items because he's confident he can win without it. At the very least, if you're taking the items, at least he knows where you are, which takes this defensive game and makes it a lot more effective. I think that's kind of a classic game of CNZ, but it will be put to the test quite significantly on our next map, Flea, because we're going into Ruins of Sarnath, and this is another one of those just champion mismatch opportunities where you've got a Scale Bearer versus a Nyx. If CNZ doesn't play perfectly, it's gonna be hard when we inevitably have these fights, right? But Bukster needs to make sure the aim's on point, because it's quite difficult to hit Nyx with a rail, I think is a generous way of putting it. So there's a couple of moving parts going into this map, I think.
Are we going to see a repeat of map 1? We also saw Heavy versus Light Champion, and that was a convincing win for Bukster. Now I'm going to agree with you on the aim part. I think that is my main issue with what we've seen with Bukster so far. He's incredibly inconsistent, and it feels like he's fumbling the weapon choices a fair bit as well. He will go for rockets, shoot at a decent distance, and he just won't connect. Or he will miss those rails, whereas CNZ closes the gap with an LG and does consistent and tremendous amounts of damage. And that way, Bukster, even when he has both of the major items, even when he has control, just gets obliterated and deleted off the map. So he has to be so careful about it, especially against a champion like Nyx, who can easily sneak up on you.
Now that first map, the errors of CNZ are impossible to ignore, and they were a huge contributing factor. You know, if he didn't have those 2 accidental ring outs, would have been a smaller divide, would have had more time to calculate what to do next, and you know, we could talk about that for ages, about how things could have been different. But with how warmed up CNZ seems to be now, and being able to, quite rightly so, disregard all the disasters that happened on Exile, I think we're going into this one more refreshed and more prepared. You kind of look on paper and think light versus heavy, it's always going to be tricky for the light champion, especially on ruins. You know, we touch on this a lot, that those lights are kind of out in the open, which leave you a little bit vulnerable, we'll say. But at this point, I kind of feel like I believe in CNZ. I would like to see him take this win, but already, Bukster having the heavy side spawn, and CNZ having the mega. Great to have a mega, but we need some armor.
Just look at that difference in stack indeed, and that rail, no. CNZ immediately forced to use his Ghost Walk to escape certain death.
Oh, the perfect
might still
Bukster as well.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, all things considered, Flea, it's actually good that CNZ did that much damage. You're probably going to have to concede a frag at that point. It is right as these items are going to spawn. So not the worst time in the world, and CNZ can push forward. Definitely seems like that first frag was just setting up for the next one, setting up for the next item, and that is the hallmark of a top-level Quake player right there.
And now it is CNZ, who's got both of the items to his name, lands a nice cheeky rail as well. He knows that Bukster doesn't have rockets, doesn't have rail, and he wants to exploit that vulnerability as much as he can. Now Heavy will be the next item to spawn, and I think CNZ is already going to set up for that. He should be able to get away with it too. Bukster aggressively pushing in. Is this a misplay? He's lost so much stack.
What's next?
And, yeah, the Ghost Walk too.
I like the idea there from Bukster, but I think it was just a really bad part of the map to try that, because you're eventually gonna hit the jump pad, and the second you hit that jump pad, you're not able to go down. You're not able to get away with the damage mitigation at that point, and CNZ happy to wait and punish accordingly. A chunky amount of control, and that's simply going to get exaggerated now as another heavy goes to the Nyx. And that delay between these 2 items is gigantic. Takes a little bit of that rail, but that is going to give Bukster's position away.
Yeah, that previous push from Bukster was just too aggressive. Like, his opponent had Mega and Heavy. All he had was his base stack, and then just a few weapons to work with, and still he drops down. That is so risky, especially when it's not the first time that you're doing it. CNZ.
Ooh,
it's a race for Heavy.
Yeah, not a terrible exchange there for Bukster. We trade ability for ability, and I'm able to get the Heavy.
Absolutely, he's going to be happy with that.
And they were definitely able to hear each other up there. And then it's, okay, well, go down underground. Let's move towards the Mega and try and get some items of our own. I think that CNZ is going to be, at the very least, even if he doesn't hear the Mega get picked up from that point, he'll be able to probably just do the maths and realize he's close range. He's not going to delay it, surely not.
CNZ managing to stay competitive by doing twice as much damage as his opponent, even though he's getting outplayed when it comes to some of the pickups, and especially control right now. Sublime rockets, and I'm liking the use of the Ghost Walk as well. He isn't holding on to it until the very last second to escape with a sliver of health. Nah, he pops it the moment he feels that he's in a bad position to avoid taking that damage in the first place.
Whoa. Rail's gonna miss. Would have been fantastic for Bukster to land, because it no doubt would have been a free Heavy with the time that's left. Oh my good lord, Bukster gets a frag, sure, but at what cost? There's no health up there. There's barely anything at all, and now CNZ, for another time, the 2 frags that he's lost out on they've at least benefited him in some way fresh off the spawn, and there's no way he doesn't know that. You know, CNZ is that kind of methodical player that if he knows there's a likelihood he's going to concede a frag, right, what can I get from this situation regardless? What little victories can exist? And in this case, full control again.
Bukster slowing it down a fair bit, it seems, holding just top control. He knows that he's missing out on heavy, but he doesn't care. He's just going for the small armors for the time being. Probably trying to set up on Mega. That's gonna be his next goal. He knows that he's got a sizable stack to work with, but still CNZ is outstacking him after that rail Bukster. Nice little juke, actually. CNZ just jumping into the room as Bukster pivots right back out. It's one of those things that you can do with Scale Bearer. Make these very tight turns without losing momentum. And he made excellent use of it, but will he be able to escape? No, CNZ, perfect with the rail in the back. And now off spawn. Fair bit of damage there too. Bukster losing control catch up.
Piece by piece at this stage as we are dawning on that halfway point. The preemptive rocket, just in case you go through teleporter, that one's less about damage and more about information. And he's trying to hold the angle towards the light armor. I mean, Bukster, kind of the forbidden fruit in that position. It's so likely he's going to try and take it, and CNZ has no reason to not kind of just sit there and wait. I think that Scale Bearer being the large champion, yeah, he's got stack, but he's pretty easy to hit. And Bukster again trying to escape, but when he decides the time is now to use the bull rush and get out of there, he just doesn't have the health. Damage mitigation or not, you're gonna go down.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing, even before that frag. Bukster, whenever he actually uses the bull rush, it's when he's near death. So far, it hasn't helped him in any significant way. He hasn't got the frags with it, positioning, or anything. It's usually just to try and get away when he's at the very end, and CNZ using that wall jump to stay clear of those rockets, and the LG is on point once more. Now Bukster, he's gotta start kicking it into a higher gear catch-up. Let's not forget, this is crunch time. If he loses this map, he forfeits his shot at getting into the Pro League.
At this stage, CND strapped on double damage right now. A common thing that going up against a heavy, you're going to get more damage on deck, but when there's only just been just short of 6 minutes on the clock, I think it goes to show just how competitive CNZ is stuck to this entire time. Ghost Walk, yeah, it's going to be down. Heavy, going to get taken here by Bukster, but we kind of repeat history, I think, Flea. There's 4 minutes left on the clock. CNZ has 3 frags in the lead. He's playing a champion that's already kind of slippery. Wall rush is used, but with that wall jump available, she can go for these juke opportunities, if not just jumping back. The position game once more. CNZ, you can't catch this guy in a bad spot. When you play this defensive game, just the sixth sense of when to escape, when to pop a ghost walk. Don't take any risks. It's what he's so well known for at this point. And now, already, we can just look at it from his point of view. He's not competing for a lot of these items now. He's happy to just play this long-winded game. Take the heavy, who cares?
I like that Bukster at least took some initiative with that bull rush. Such a risky rocket jump. If CNZ had stuck around just slightly longer, he should have been able to secure the frag, but he knows that that is only exposing himself to unnecessary risks this late in the game. And now Bukster, what are you going to do? 30 points of health. CNZ again. Can he get the frag?
He was out of cells. He had no ammo.
The double back. Very gutsy play from Bukster. CNZ completely taken by surprise, but unfortunately for the Latvian player, the rail will not connect. Is he going to get railed in the back again? Okay. I feel like that would have been the 3rd time that Bukster takes the exact same position and then gets railed in the back with CNZ just going around the other side.
CNZ will be content taking those lights now. No reason to, unless we can take it safely, just go down to those less risky positions against a Scale Bearer. No one likes getting caught down near heavy against a large champion on the best of days, let alone someone that has a bull rush ready to go. But CNZ's management of that bull rush, making it pretty much a non-issue. Forcing out of Bukster to survive, or when it's used aggressively, making sure I'm in position where I can simply drop down. Again, getting that damage on deck first, and then using the Ghost Wall just to maximize the effectiveness of it. And we can start to play this retreating game for absolutely the rest of the map. Like, this is going to be the remaining 2 minutes for sure. If Bukster can't find him now, he's going to be in a spot of bother, as you quite rightly said. This will be the final map that CNZ needs to win. Gets the perfect pull out. Oh, Bukster, see you later. And now there's significantly more work. 1 frag don't sound like much, but with how CNZ's playing this, that's a lifetime.
He's got the Ghost Walk at the ready too. It almost feels like CNZ has to really mess something up right now. Even if Bukster pops the ability, he's just going to use the Invis and escape scot-free once more. Setting up at top of the bounce pad. He knows Bukster comes up, I'm just gonna do the same thing, pin you against the wall with the LG. You're gonna come from behind, I'm gonna drop down, Invis away, and that's it. I really don't see this as being possible anymore unless Bukster just chains together some beautiful rails right now.
That
I don't
was
think
well
he'll
played
manage.
from CNZ too, acknowledging that no, now I use Ghost Walk, if there's even a chance. Waits for the jump pad, Bukster gets a good call out. Now 3 frags in less than a minute. The advantage being that you're going up against the light, spawning with no armor. If he can get some good spawns right here, then maybe, but it's gonna be so hard, and now with that heavy being taken, it makes things a bit trickier, I think. CNZ's on the escape. He hasn't got any weapons to fight back. Oh, the Ghost Walk comes back just in time, and that's gonna be really annoying for Bukster.
I can't help but feel...
What?
Oh, nice little read there. Blindly firing the rocket. It's gonna pick up Mega, but he should have heard CNZ. He might still have a shot at this. Ghost Walk not up for another 25 seconds. Bukster now chasing. But with 10 seconds left, I don't think it is going to matter. CNZ has got the mobility, and that will indeed spell GG. CNZ, second player today to defend his spot in the Pro League. Bukster, valiant effort. Nothing bad to be said about that, but it will be CNZ staying in the league. Well played.
It was one of those situations where it wasn't as one-sided as I think I and probably a lot of us thought it would be. You know, I was keeping an eye on chat room before this match even began. I saw a lot of people obviously having confidence in CNZ. But after that first map, we're a little bit like, ooh, is everything going to be all right with CNZ today? But I like his ability to kind of just re-screw his head back on, basically, as we go into the rest of the maps. And he sticks true to that game plan that he loves so much, that incredibly defensive play, which against this caliber of player can't be an easy task. There are situations where you'll make one slip up and one frag can be all it takes to even out and maybe start to trickle away a little bit. But every single map he played both against Bukster perfectly and against the champion he was against perfectly. I think there was very much a matchup taking place there that he was ready for as well, which I also think is just another thing to be impressed by, especially given the stressful situations of a relegation match, which, for his case, has been able to stay in Pro League.
Yep. When we look back at the final map, I just feel like Bukster, his timing and positioning wasn't what it should have been. There were so many situations where he shows up for an item 5 seconds late, 2 seconds late, and you can just see CNZ take it away, and he's out of there with the Ghost Walk, with the Invis. And so time and time again, Bukster falling just short of getting a good position before an item spawns. And then, of course, like you mentioned yourself, right, it is so much easier to do a lot of damage on a heavy champion than it is the other way around. And I think he just wasn't able to really get into his groove, secure the items, while CNZ played a very clever positional game in turn.
But I do want to give those props to Bukster under these conditions. Like, he's able to step up, and he was able to get that first map. I think that was, by all means, like, if he somehow wasn't able to take that first map with what was happening, I think that would have been quite surprising. But all the same, being able to kind of exist, I think, in the rest of the maps was good for him as a starting point, I guess. But it kind of just seems like maybe this is just where we continue, right? Where he can do really well in challenges, but when it comes to fighting Pro League talent, not quite there yet. CNC has that kind of world-class stature that in this kind of situation will only ever benefit him. But I'm curious to see what Wheat thinks of these matches too,
Enjoyed it all. It was really interesting from the get-go. Bukster coming out of the gate with that first map win. I really kind of felt, all right, we got ourselves a series, but you kind of ended on a comment that I think is spot on catch up, and that's the idea that CNZ clearly has a little bit more comfort in those pressured situations, right? Life is on the line. We saw the exact same thing as he made it into relegation or from challengers into QPL, but also agree with you that we didn't quite see that extend into the regular season. The good news is if you're a CNZ fan, is going to get another shot there in stage 3. He looked consistent. He played the game that we know CNZ can play. That was maybe a little bit too much for Bukster there in maps 2, 3, and 4. So, nice to see these challenger matches kind of putting both competitors, to the test. So, congratulations to CNZ. Bukster enjoyed the play, and hope we see you fighting through the challenger again. But CNZ will live to tell more tales in the QPL and